What is going on, guys? This is Bradley alongside Zach, and you are listening to the Charm City Sideline podcast. We obviously have some big news today as the Ravens have fired head coach John Harbaugh after 18 years with the team. Crazy news. Zach and I are 23 years old. He was hired when we were 5, I think. So we were in kindergarten when John Harbaugh was hired, and now we're out of college, which is insane. By the way, guys, we hit 1K subs while we were live for our Steelers post-game reaction, so we really, really appreciate you guys. If anyone in here, anyone watching is not subscribed, feel free to hit that button. We're going to be very active during this process as the Ravens look for a new head coach and a new coaching staff. Also hit the like button, follow us on Instagram, follow us, Lamar Season, Ravens HQ, and then follow Charm City Sideline on Instagram, follow our Twitter. And yeah, John Harbaugh fired as the Ravens head coach. Zach, what are your initial thoughts with this breaking news that we got earlier today?
Genuinely shocked. Like, the end of the day for it to be announced was extremely surprising to me. As the day just went on, it's Tuesday now, a day after Black Monday that we know coaches usually get fired. We're now on to Tuesday at what was it? I guess 4 o'clock my time, 5 o'clock Eastern, that like you get this shattering news. And I guess the organization, as in Harbaugh, didn't get to tell his assistants. Players were given like a 5-minute heads up for a Zoom call or something. Some crazy stuff. Like everything just decided to.
Yeah, it was wacky.
Unfold. That's a great way to put it. Freaking wacky. Like totally like an unorganized slop of a head coaching decision. But it's obvious that it just took all day to decide this kind of thing. Like literally from the moment they got there this morning, I'm sure they had conversations, difficult ones, I believe, is the quote from a lot of different sources. Like, I am just so like there is a breath of relief, but also a breath of nervousness, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think it's appropriate for both. We are so caught up in like how excited we are to be launching ourselves into this conversation, especially you and me. Like we've been kind of dreaming of covering this and having this conversation for an off season. So, and the best part is it's going to take a long time. I don't think the Ravens like have some guy that they pick like by Friday. This is like going to be a long process. But besides that, like just so excited for how someone like Bisciotti handled this. As in our faith as Ravens fans re-justified, like how we want this organization to be aggressive. They always have been, whether it's DaCosta or Ozzie, but now we're seeing it from the ownership, like how much the culture also starts with the owner and not just Harbaugh. So whenever you have this group set and you can just get this new head coach started here, he is already launched into a perfect culture, good-looking roster that's going to be improved this offseason 100%. And it is just so much fun to be hopeful and in a way that literally, was it 2 days ago? 3 days ago? We had our
2 nights ago
out of our chest.
Yeah.
So
48 hours ago.
Man, I'm just freaking psyched.
Yeah, me too. XX Beast with the super chat. 1K boys, congrats. Been here since first stream. You have XX Beast. We really appreciate you and appreciate the super chat. Guys, we're gonna get into all of why Harbaugh was fired, our thoughts on it overall, some coaching candidates we like. But first, I do think we should talk about John Harbaugh and his tenure as a Ravens head coach and what he did for this organization. Brian Billick was fired in 2008 and John Harbaugh comes in and they're immediately in the playoffs. Feels like every single year. Harbaugh and Flacco came in together, and I think it was a great move when they brought in Harbaugh. And he won a Super Bowl in 2012 after a lot of the players felt like he wasn't the guy for the job. was clashing with Ed Reed and Ray Lewis and those guys, and got us a ring, got me a childhood ring that is one of, if not the like best moment of my life. Um, I had so fun that night. I still remember it vividly. I think I was in fifth grade. Um, and like that is because of obviously all the players on the team, Ozzie Newsome, but also that's because of John Harbaugh. And he gave me that moment, and he gave me a team to root for my whole entire life up to this point that has been in the playoffs almost every single year. Um, and I have no hard feelings for Harbaugh. I hope he's successful wherever he goes. And I just wanted to say that first before we get into everything else, because we're so caught up in wanting him fired and thinking it's the right move to move on from him. I think now that he is gone, we should make sure um, to say and to appreciate what he did for this organization
Yeah.
and what he did for this team. And, we think of Brian, Zach and I barely remember Brian Billick, but we think of Brian Billick positively because, I mean, they won a ring with him and it, fell off a little bit and it was time to move on. I think that's going to be the same thing with Harbaugh, especially a couple years down the line. We're going to think of him very positively in his time in Baltimore. So I just wanted to say that. And Zach, I guess we can also get your thoughts on sort of Harbaugh's tenure in Baltimore.
Yeah, it's nothing but love and respect. Like, yeah, I know that fans, including ourselves, had been on platforms saying how much we were ready for him to be gone. Twitter was celebrating today. Like, it does also come at a cost. Like you just mentioned, like John Harbaugh really means something to me as a fan and a fan of sports. Period. Like, I'm not totally sure without his impact, I am a Ravens fan today, and I am this big of a sports fan. Like, I've always respected him so much as um, in the locker room, whether I guess players are into it or not. He's talked about being a man of God. He's constantly preaching the same message that does get through to players, whether it's been his dad's messages, anything like that, and it's always been relevant to whatever team he's been coaching.
Yeah, definitely. And it's funny because I think there's six head coaching openings, not counting the Ravens, and seven teams have already called Harbaugh's agent, which means an NFL team that still has their head coach has literally called Harbaugh's agent already. So not only does every single team want Harbaugh that has an opening, there are teams that still have their head coach that are basically calling John Harbaugh's agent and saying, would you be our head coach? Because if so, we'll fire the guy we have right now to hire you, which is pretty crazy.
Yeah.
I have a feeling that's probably the Dolphins. Um, I think there's a chance the Bucks would do that as well. Maybe move on from Todd Bowles. John Harbaugh and the Bucks would be very interesting. Um, but that was funny to hear. I think that was Schefter who first reported that. But also, guys, another thing that I want to mention, when this head coaching search begins, tomorrow, I guess, keep in mind that these insiders do not have real sources in this organization. Steve Bisciotti is the only one that knows what is going on. And, Ozzie Newsome, Sashi Brown, Dick Cass, those guys are the only circle of people that know anything. And anything you hear from Rappaport, Schefter, Pelissero, Garofalo, any of those guys, don't listen to it, because all of those guys said literally Monday and this morning that they felt like the indication was Harbaugh was going to stay. And a few hours later, he is fired. So I just want you guys to sort of think about that and keep in mind that these guys are purely going off of speculation, and the Ravens are a very private organization. So keep that in mind. As we move on, let's sort of get into why was John Harbaugh fired. This is probably going to be the bulk of the pod. I mean, this most simplest way to put it is just saying that it was time. Um, I was sort of okay with moving on from Harbaugh going back to like 2020, I think. I think every single offseason since then, I was like, I'd be thinking about this if I were Bisciotti, just because it felt like they weren't able to get over the hump with him. And you have so many years where the loss that ends your season is just brutal. Like the worst loss in the NFL that season, almost. Like 2016, AB, the reach on Christmas. 2017, Tyler Boyd, 4th and 12. 2018, CJ Mosley saves you and gets the pick as the Browns are
Mm-hmm.
driving down to end you 3 years in a row. 2019, Derrick Henry runs all over the Ravens. They were favored by like 10 against the Titans in that divisional round, I think. Um, really, really bad loss. And then 2020, the Bills loss was terrible. You obviously have the Lamar pick six that ends it, and he gets a concussion, can't even finish the game. 2021 didn't make the playoffs. 2022, the Tyler Huntley fumble in the jungle, whatever Bengals fans call it. Um, 2023, the AFC Championship loss, they were favored in that game as well. If you guys didn't know that, against the Chiefs. And then 2024 Buffalo, guys, the Ravens were favored in that game too. They were favored by 1.5, even though it was in Buffalo, and they lose that one in heartbreaking fashion. Way too many turnovers. That's I think reason number one. Um, Zach, something that is crazy to me is the fact that we heard from Ian Rappaport, and I do think he was probably told with good information because the situation was already over. He was told that Harbaugh was going to keep both coordinators and was going to try to keep both coordinators. And there was some disagreement with that. Lamar Jackson, I was surprised by this. I thought Lamar and Monken had a good relationship, but apparently Lamar and Monken had some disagreements. I wouldn't say they like didn't get along, but there were some reports that Harbaugh was kind of the buffer between those two guys. Like Lamar would communicate with Harbaugh, Monken would communicate with Harbaugh, and Harbaugh would kind of communicate
Yikes.
for both of them. Definitely not a good situation. And I think Harbaugh wanted to keep Monken and sort of Ravens officials. Players on the offensive side of the ball wanted a new guy at OC. And then also the fact that he was going to plan on keeping Zach Orr, I think that's crazy. He clearly didn't have a feel for it. I love Zach Orr. I met him when he was like a really good linebacker on the team in 2016, I think it was, and I was just a 14-year-old kid. Was very nice to me. I just don't think he's ready to be a defensive coordinator. And the fact that Harbaugh was going to try to run it back with him, I think that's sort of that stubbornness that I've talked about that we've seen too much from him in the past.
And going back to what you mentioned at the very beginning of that, where you'd said you were kind of out on Harbaugh, what, 2022?
Like
And
4 or 5 years ago, I would have been fine if they got rid of him.
and see, I think that's technically the healthy way of thinking about a head coach now. And that's the real word modern kind of feel of organizations and how they run franchises. Like the Ravens are special in that category. They were definitely an outlier. I think that includes the Steelers too, where it's just been so long with so much success to a point, but so much success that it is kind of difficult to say bye to someone that now 18 years of knowing them and them working for you, it's like your family. Think about anyone you've known for 18 years. They are literally your family, if not, someone you'd consider a best friend, something like that. I mean, even then, they mean something to you. And it's incredible to move on in a way that I think there's a lot of discourse, as in more respected media officials with this decision than, the fan base. Ravens fan base all wants this. They're ready for new blood, new change. And the media, speaking of, like, I think Tony Dungy, a couple of people on Twitter going out and saying, this looks ridiculous. I forgot the guy on I think it's Part of My Take, just going on a rant about it today in shock that it's like, you don't get rid of, the guy that's created this culture. I think it's more than that. Like you'd said, like when you had these conversations they had today and you were asking Harbaugh what your plans were with Zach Orr and Monken. And as fans, I think we gave Monken kind of a pass, but Orr we were most definitely ready to move on from. And I imagine the discussions of that being Harbaugh thinking of Orr as a future guy and thinking about him as a longtime coach for the Ravens, a longtime guy that'll be a part of the Ravens, when DaCosta and Bisciotti are building this team around right now, we don't have time to be thinking 3 or 4 years down the line. If Zach Orr can't get the job done right now, he can't be in this organization. And that's what they decided ultimately with Harbaugh, that if Harbaugh is going to lean that way with his philosophy, then that's not correct. That's not the way we want it. And I really respect the, I'm going to say it again, like an ultimate decision towards wanting to win about this franchise. Like it is as gutsy as it is incredible. Like it is very, it's controversial and it's admirable. Like there's so many ways to look at it, as like me as a fan, seeing all these reports, Schefter, Rappaport, all saying this stuff about the not the Ravens, the NFL having all these contact with Harbaugh right after this firing. It makes you kind of feel bad. Your stomach turns a little. You're like, wait. That does sound a little crappy for us. Like, did we move on from the right guy? I'm not totally sure like that's the right answer right now. But I know the Ravens regret moves such as Mike McDonald that I know us all talk about as an awful mistake. And I think all in all, you finally kind of not bit off more than you can chew, but I think who said it on the Ravens Collective? Someone said kicking the can down the road. You finally just got tired of it. You're tired of saying, "Hey Harbaugh, you're the guy," year after year after year, and finally just looked at the results, as obvious as they are. I love it.
Yeah, appreciate the super chat, Mad Rasta. Thanks, man. So
Zach over Lamar.
There was a
maybe.
So, guy, I think a lot of our viewers and listeners are younger guys like us. I know we do have some like adults that watch us, but so like almost everyone here, including Zach and I, were like elementary school or younger or not alive when Brian Billick was fired. But there was a quote that I saw this morning from Steve Bisciotti when he fired Brian Billick. For anyone that doesn't know, the Ravens won a Super Bowl with Brian Billick, and they were very successful for a while, and then kind of had one bad year and got rid of him. And this is what, Steve Bisciotti said when he fired Brian Billick. He said, in order to be successful, you have to take chances. And in order to take chances, you have to listen to your heart. You have to go with your gut. It doesn't mean that you don't fear being wrong, because I do fear being wrong. I could be 3 coaches past Brian Billick 9 years from now trying to solve this puzzle. And that told me when I read that quote this morning, even though it was 15 years ago, unless Steve Bisciotti has drastically changed, I felt like he was going to move on. After I saw that quote, I didn't know that quote existed. I was 5 years old when he said that. So, like, this tells me that Steve Bisciotti wants to win, and he wants to get a ring with Lamar. He wants to get multiple rings with Lamar.
Yeah.
And that, to me, is very gratifying, because there are so many owners in professional sports, not just the NFL, all professional sports, that really don't care about winning that much. Their number one priority is making as much money as they can. And this move, albeit a risk, tells us that Steve Bisciotti dramatically cares about winning, and he's okay with taking a risk to try to get a ring, try to get multiple rings. And that makes me feel, very happy. And I'm very glad that Steve Bisciotti is the owner of this team. And to be honest, as a fan, did I want the Ravens to move on from Harbaugh earlier than they did? Yes. If I put myself in Steve Bisciotti's shoes, I probably would have fired him the same time that Steve Bisciotti did. Yeah. So, like, that is where I stand on him. And obviously he had to talk. 100% he talked to Lamar before he did this. Obviously EDC. EDC wasn't a part of the decision, but EDC obviously knew that this was going to happen. Yeah. At some point today. And I want to give a shout out to Steve Bisciotti, because Um, there's so many fans of teams across the country in other sports in the NFL where they feel like their owner just like really doesn't care. Um, and at the end of the day, guys, at the very, very minimum, we know that our owner wants to win and cares about the fans. So that's really good to know too.
Mm-hmm. And it does kind of favor the bold sometimes. I think there's definitely some situations you could pick out where teams um, haven't paid off from something like this, but I think the best stories are the ones that do. Um, there's plenty in modern time, as in the last 10 years, I would say specifically, where teams have done this and it has paid off. Whether that is a coaching decision, whether that is, someone like Peyton Manning or Aaron Rodgers to Jordan Love, there's so many analogies of that kind of situation, and it is for the better. Like, again, it's just the tip of the hat to someone like Bisciotti, and like you said, total shout out to someone like him, um, and the ability to find that guy as well. Like, we're very confident in who we're going to get as a coach being the top guy available because of the roster that's been constructed and because of this organization. And to have an owner like Bisciotti means a whole lot to a bunch of these coaches.
Yeah.
Like who we interviewed. Like Will commented something like, hopefully we don't get some sleaze bag like Urban Meyer or John Gruden. Like, I can't even imagine that possibility. I don't think it exists. I think the Ravens are just too smart to do something like that. There's not even a thousandth of a percent of me that imagines that as a possibility. And I'm that fully confident in their ability to find that next guy for hopefully even more success for years to come.
Yeah, and honestly, like it's funny. 5 minutes after Harbaugh was fired, and I had to post on Instagram and was sort of thinking about it, texting all my friends. I immediately was like stressed about who they're gonna hire, and then an hour later, thinking about it a little bit, I was like, you know what? Steve Bisciotti making this move and choosing to make this move, honestly, like I trust him to make the right hire now because of his willingness to move on from Harbaugh. So, and we're obviously going to get into some coaching candidates we want a little bit later, but like I think I trust him to make this decision. You know what I mean? I don't think I'm going to be too stressed about it. I mean, okay, I will. But like I at least for now, I think I trust that he's going to hire one of the guys that I want them to hire, if that makes sense. But like this is a really good comment from Martavius. Ronnie Stanley's interview was the nail in the coffin on the locker room stance with Harbaugh. And I think I talked about this in our post-game reaction to the Steelers loss, where I actually talked about it a few weeks ago. Multiple players have been asked about Harbaugh the last month of this season.
Yeah.
And they're basically getting thrown a lob to like defend him. And I haven't really seen that from anyone. And if anyone doesn't know what Martavius is talking about, basically Ronnie Stanley was asked about Harbaugh right after the game, and he basically said, that's not my place. I'm not in charge. I'm not the guy to make those decisions. When you could easily say, yeah, he's my guy. I want him to be the coach of this team. Yeah. Like, think about if the Rams lose in the wild card round this weekend and someone asks, Kyron Williams, do you want Sean McVay to still be your head coach? He'd be like, what the hell are you talking about? Of course I do. So like players not defending Harbaugh was very telling. And I think that is part of the reason, one of the many reasons that he was moved on from too.
Yeah, I totally agree. That even goes to someone like Marlon, who had actually some positive things to say about Harbaugh, but also it goes to someone like Lamar, who in the moment where I forgot who talked about it. I loved what they said. That you're emotional in that decision, in that time where you can say almost anything and it'll just kind of come out of you whenever you're in that situation. You're just lost in a detrimental way, and you are now sitting at the podium talking to these guys, and that's the perfect chance to, say something that even you don't even mean, it could be anything. And he just kind of goes, well, actually, I can't think about that right now. Like, I literally can't think about that right now. There's no definitive I want him here. There's no definitive I don't want him here. That'd be ridiculous to say. But also to say, hey, I don't have anything to say about that does show more towards the negative side than positive. And that's your number one guy. And like you mentioned, and like I want to think about for this coaching process and for this decision today, how much Lamar is involved in all of this, in being a part of maybe coaching interviews. Like, what does that all look like? How does he get involved in something like this? Just totally piques my interest. Like, I think a lot of fans have been wanting an offensive guy, but also I love the idea of a defensive guy. I know we're going to talk about some candidates here in a second, but like, I am fully bought in on whatever decision they make, knowing that Steve Bisciotti, DaCosta, and Lamar Jackson are going to be the guys that are the forefront of this decision. Like, you can definitely feel confident in that.
Yeah, 100%. Um, so there was another thing I wanted to talk about. Um, I just think that it's gotten stale, like his message to the players. Um, and it is interesting because it did kind of feel messy today. Um, at least from the reporting, I feel like sort of, and obviously Jeff Zrebeck talked about this. I trust him more than anyone. Basically, Ravens staffers, other coaches on this staff, like 12 hours ago, felt like Harbaugh was going to be the coach of this team in 2026. And Steve Bisciotti sat down with Harbaugh, and I can't remember where I saw this, somewhere on Twitter, that they basically talked like all day today, Bisciotti and
Yeah.
Harbaugh. And it was a very honest, open conversation that was quote unquote tough at times, I believe. Um, and Bisciotti ended up, we don't know if Bisciotti had already made this decision or if the conversation today was something he wanted to have to figure out if he wanted to move on from Harbaugh or not. But I think something interesting that Jeff Zrebeck said that I felt like I was sort of already considering is that Bisciotti might have made this decision like 3 weeks ago or something along those lines. Like, the season was not going well, and the loss at home to Pittsburgh was really bad. And I think this was after, this season's a blur for me. Sorry, guys. But like the loss to New England on Sunday Night Football, where they had the 11-point lead in the fourth quarter. And it slowly just added up and added up. And I don't know about you,
Thanksgiving.
Zach. Yeah, I don't know about you, Zach, but I think, Steve Bisciotti is very like even keel. Like, I think if the Ravens would have won against the Steelers and then lost to the Texans, I think Harbaugh still would have been fired. Like, I don't think Bisciotti would have made this decision because of one game. I think Zrebeck said, like, you have a head coach for 18 years. One game is not deciding if you move on from him or not. And he was sort of mentioning that even maybe 2 playoff wins, he still thinks they would have moved on. So I think I
Wow.
agree with that. Like, I think Bisciotti probably had a decision in the back of his mind that unless they like made the Super Bowl or something, I think he was going to move on.
I totally agree. Those games at home that we used to
Yeah,
feel so confident about, not even getting an ounce of it,
yeah.
we're all showing up to those games pumped up, supplying the crowd noise, energy, all those levels, and yet it still just is totally covered up by the fact that the Ravens choke these games. They're blowing these games against the Bengals. They're um, dropping games to the Steelers they just have no business doing. And it was just too much to overcome. Like, yeah, I think a perfect nail in the coffin is the loop missed field goal, but like, I would love to know the um, next steps of what he thought about if that were a win. Because the energy of a last second go ahead field goal as time
Hmm.
expires is a incredible energy. Like,
Yeah.
we might be over or underestimating that fact as well. But I'm hoping and I'm assuming that the two of them, that means DaCosta and Bisciotti,
Hmm.
if not just DaCosta, will talk to the media within the next week. And I'd be so excited to hear what they say about questions like that. I think the media is definitely going to be hounding them about when they knew this decision was going to be made and how you made up your mind, blah, 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 blah. So excited for that.
Yeah, me too. Um, is there anything else you wanted to say about Harbaugh? I know we can obviously circle back, but I think at
Yeah,
least for the yeah, go ahead.
yeah, it's probably my most out of box with all of this that I believe Zrebic mentioned as well. Like the Ravens fans, including ourselves, talk so much about how or not Lamar Harbaugh was the problem of this and blowing leads and losing the locker room and blah 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 blah. Like now that he is no longer that scapegoat, it now falls to Eric DeCosta and Lamar Jackson. Like imagine we get an offensive head coach and put him at the helm, and Lamar and him don't get along. Like, do you think that if we are playing well and then it just falls apart 1 year and Lamar is what 32 or 33, the Ravens wouldn't move on from Lamar? Like us as super fans of Lamar Jackson, I get nervous for something like that, or nervous of the idea that DeCosta is moved on from and we have to totally shape our organization differently again. Like there is an unsettling feeling about all of this with like an outsider's look, but to know that the decision was made, even in like almost a last stitch effort today, like if everyone's leaving for the day, everyone's done their locker pack ups and there's nothing going on inside the Ravens. What do you call it?
The castle.
Yeah, the castle today. I was trying to think of the actual word of the building. I don't
Yeah.
know. But nothing's going on there besides this conversation. Like, it's incredible that this decision was made today and at the end of the day, and oh, man, to be a fly on the wall of those conversations.
I
Like,
know.
oh my goodness,
I wish, man.
priceless.
I wish I could hear what was said. Um, oh yeah, this is actually what I want. Thank you so much, Bentley, because I wanted to mention this and forgot about it. Yeah, Steve Bisciotti already put out a statement that it was his decision to fire John and nobody else's. Um, so yeah, that's very true. And I remember Jeff Zrebiec mentioned that this was not a mutual decision. We sort of felt like there was a chance that it was the reporting was going to be either Harbaugh's retiring or mutually parting of ways.
Yeah.
And Steve Bisciotti, in his statement, literally said, "I chose to move on from John Harbaugh." Basically, something along those lines. Which that was kind of surprising to me to see, and it was kind of like a whoa moment. Like, okay, like he's really in it for this. Like, he's trying to get the next guy, and he was willing to say that it was his decision.
Yes.
Douglas, we really
Douglas.
appreciate you for the super chat. The season may be a blessing. Lamar's MJ Phil Jackson arc, baby. Let's bring home multiple rings.
Woo!
I believe John Elway had a coach fired about halfway through his career and was a lot more successful after. And I think that's happened with a couple quarterbacks. I think Peyton Manning maybe had a head coaching change. I'm sorry, I was probably like 2 years old, but I think Peyton Manning had a head coaching change at some point as well, and that's definitely happened. Gosh, there's one more thing I wanted to talk about.
Douglas, that gave me chills, dude. Like, I might go watch The Last Dance. That pumped me up. That was a great freaking comparison. Sure, but a great comparison to think of a hopeful future of this team. Like, knowing how special Lamar is, just getting him the right guy. Just going on with basketball. Like, I even tweeted about it at Josina Anderson because I wanted more opinions. Like, the Raptors had fired their coach of the year for almost a nobody in the NBA and Nick Nurse, and they won a championship, and it was because their roster was incredible. Like, this is the exact story, and like the same story that we're living in right now. Like, getting the right guy is crucial to this, but also to think about, an offensive mind with Lamar for the rest of his career, or even, an incredible defensive guy with Lamar for the rest of his career. Having an incredible defense. Think of a defensive mastermind for the rest of Lamar's career that's getting him a turnover or two in the playoffs every game. We can't even say we've had that. Like, any way we go about this, it feels like the right way. Like, we're going to find a way to spin it in the right direction. And, oh man, it's going to be so exciting. Great freaking super chat, Douglas. I think you're muted.
Thank you. By the way, guys, 50 plus people in here. We did just hit our 1K subscriber goal, but if anyone's not subscribed and you're enjoying what you're listening to or what you're watching, hit the subscribe button. Also, guys, 51 people in here. I doubt we have 51 likes. If you want to hit that for us as well.
Is that a challenge?
We really, yeah, it is. We really appreciate it.
That's a challenge.
If anyone doesn't know, I'm Lamar Season on Instagram. That's Ravens HQ. My name's Bradley. His name is Zach.
I should have said my name is Zach. That would have been really clean.
Yeah.
It looked like you're pointing at me to say, and I'm Zach. Yeah, that would have been really
cool. But anyway, you want to get into some candidates, Zach?
Yes. Please.
All right, take it away. Take it away. Give us some guys you're looking for.
Now, we compiled a list before this. I'm only going to go over, I think, the most likely to me that have been floated around by the fan base right now. My favorite before I really did my research, which is a very important note to this, was Brian Flores. He's the current Vikings defensive coordinator. He was a part of the Bill Belichick coaching tree. Absolutely stellar defensive mind. I don't like how his time ended in Miami. Like, it feels like Ryan Fitzpatrick and Tua, anyone that was like the leaders of that team at that time, we're talking really rough about him. I feel uncomfortable with him. But moving on, someone like Clint Kubiak, current OC for Seattle. They're 14-3 right now. They don't really need an introduction. Kubiak is also like an absolute rock star. I think the last couple of years he's only gotten better. That was even the Saints and now Seattle, and potentially with a Ravens offense, what could he do with those tools? Then going on to someone like Jesse Minter, he's the Chargers DC. That one's like a very not controversial, but also like there's so many notes and tidbits about it that spark my interest. Guys like Chris Shula, Kevin Stefanski, Cliff Kingsbury was fired today. That doesn't really make me too excited to get him, but also names that someone like Jeff Zrebiec mentioned, someone like Marcus Freeman. Sure, Marcus Freeman for Notre Dame was, re-upped with Notre Dame. It looks like he's committed to Notre Dame, but I think the Ravens are definitely going to make a call and at least see if he is interested and would be willing to do an interview. But also guys like Robert Saleh. We talked about Anthony Weaver a few times this year as a Dolphins DC, being a Ravens guy and technically under Harbaugh's tree at one point. I think that's a name to watch out for. And what do you think for there's a couple of names on this list I'm not going to say. Maybe we can go into them later on because they're very outside speculation. Guys like Kurt Signetti, Bill Belichick. I'm not willing to go that far. I feel like those guys kind of seem a little far away. But what do you think from that list there? I know you've been a Kubiak guy, but pique my interest of someone else.
Zach, by the way, are you able to see our chat right now? Because I'm on YouTube and our chat's very active right now, but it's not updating for me in here.
I'm not.
But Sutton gave us Purple Rain Podcast. Sutton has a super chat that I can't see on here, but I see on YouTube. Sutton says we need a young, offensive-minded head coach. Oh, there we go. It just updated.
Oh, it
did. I don't know. That was weird.
That was weird.
Sorry about that, guys. But Sutton commented, we need a young, offensive-minded head coach with a strong personality. I fully agree. That will unlock the next evolution of Lamar. Also hire Jim Schwartz as DC. I fully agree as well. We'll be in contact soon, guys. Apologize, Sutton. I couldn't come on yesterday, but we'll definitely collab soon. Again, everyone go subscribe to the Purple Rain Podcast. If you are not, Sutton and Alex do a great, great job over there, and he comes on our show a lot. So we're very grateful to him, and we appreciate you for the donation. Jim Schwartz, DC, I think is a home run. And you know what? I'm just going to get into this now. I want the Ravens to hire an offensive head coach. Okay. Clint Kubiak would be probably the guy I go for. I think Mike LaFleur would be another option. I might get some hate for this, but I think Kevin Stefanski is intriguing.
Hmm.
Um, but guys, I've talked about this before. First of all, most of the good teams in the NFL have an offensive leaning head coach. Yes, there's Mike McDonald, right? Number one seed Seattle right now. When you have a franchise quarterback like Lamar Jackson, I think it's very important to give him the same play caller and the same offense for as long as possible, if not for his entire career. When you have a defensive head coach or even a special teams head coach, John Harbaugh, the offensive coordinator is always changing. Like he's either going to be fired, Greg Roman, Marty Morningweg, or he's going to be so good, the offense is going to be so good that he leaves in a few years. So if you go out and hire a Jesse Minter, a Brian Flores, a Chris Shula from the Rams, Lamar, it's almost guaranteed that he's not going to have the same OC for more than like 3 years at a time for the rest of his career. And I want him to have a guy that, first of all, he can get along with, a young play caller that's going to collab with him. Lamar's going to be in his office all the time. And that guy is the leader of this team. And his number one concern is that Lamar Jackson is playing the best that he can possibly play. And I also think it is much, much easier to find a good DC than it is to find a good OC. Just as Sutton commented, Jim Schwartz is just available right now. He's one of the best DCs in the league. Offensive coordinators don't just float around like that. And even if they do, like I said, they're gone in a couple years. Look what's happened to Baker Mayfield with the Bucks, right?
Hmm.
Liam Cohen, great offense, gone. He's had so many OCs that leave. Dave Canales, I think, was his OC. Went to Carolina. Like it's so tough. So I just want Lamar to have the same offense, and I want his OC, his play caller, to be on the field with him, talking to him on the sideline in between quarters at the end of timeouts. And I think that's very important. And I really hope that's the way that the Ravens and Steve Bisciotti go.
I like that. Someone like commenting like Kubiak. Someone, yeah, there it is. Appreciate the super chat. Um, Kubiak, T. Martin as the OC, DC, Jim Schwartz. I don't think you're going to get any pushback on the Schwartz pick. T. Martin is again like one of those. Someone also mentioned in the chat perfectly. Like it's kind of like it doesn't feel developmental, but kind of in that category where it's almost like you're going to have to give him a season or two to really feel great about all of it. But again, I feel like I totally agree with you. I just think that you can also get best of both worlds with the DC as well. Um, there's a couple of great guys out there, and the league wants to start leaning zig rather than zag, like the Ravens tend to do. Like if they want to follow in the Seattle footsteps, they'd go after a DC and try and build back the defensive identity that they once had, and let that guy be a future face of the Ravens organization with Lamar Jackson. If the DC is here with Lamar Jackson as our quarterback, which is technically possible, it also means that Lamar Jackson signed off on it. Like to feel comfortable as in this DC is also willing to spend time and really work with Lamar to understand a defense to another level. Like think about how great that could be and how much we can improve from that standpoint. Like I'm concerned about someone like perfectly from Don Keith here, like Flores, where the product he's putting on the field is pretty freaking good. But as in a guy that talks to the locker room, organizes the locker room, he doesn't seem to have the charisma that our organization would also want in a guy that we envision here for the next 8+ years. So there might even be some guys here in the next week that get let go that become interviews for the Ravens just to see what they're like with their head in the door. But Man, I think an offensive mind with the Ravens sounds like uh, the Ravens' future success in dominating the AFC North for a long time. Like,
Hmm.
yeah, the AFC North right now, Tomlin's kind of defensive, um, more defensive. Um, Stefanski's out, so we'll have to see what the Browns do. But I
Yeah.
mean, Zach Taylor's still there. He's offensive. Like, to go, toe to toe, I guess, in an offensive standpoint, you're basically there with this roster already. And any more success you get from it is with a coach. The sky is the limit with an
Hmm.
offensive guy in Baltimore there too. Because again, we have to also think with a step outside the box. You have Derrick Henry for maybe 2 more years. We don't really know his future.
Yeah.
We'll have to see how the offseason looks with addressing the O line and who we get back at the tight end position. Like, there's going to be a lot of questions that also help out, and maybe what the coach wants for a part of this offensive game plan or defensive group. Like, as much fun as it is to really speculate about it, like, I think there's still some questions that'll be asked to these candidates that will shape the way the rest of the offseason looks too. And um, man, it's really exciting to think about.
It's gonna be so fun, like covering this.
Mm-hmm.
And I did just tell you guys to not listen to any insiders, but they clickbait us for a reason, and we're gonna have updates like every single day on this thing. Um, at the very least, something you can trust is it'll be like Ravens interviewing Chris Shula. Like obviously that's real information. You can do what you will with that.
Sure.
Um, so I know Zach sort of mentioned some candidates he's thinking about. Um, Clint Kubiak would be not. What's your number one choice, Zach? By the way,
Oof. Oof. Um,
if you had to make the hire like right now, no takebacks.
if I could get Marcus Freeman, it's going to be him. But other than that, I would
Are
say
you
the most likely is
serious?
Kubiak.
You would take Marcus Freeman number one?
I think so.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
I would take Clint Kubiak if
I
I
don't
could.
think he's very like possible. So I'm not gonna like. I kind of thought of it as like a dream scenario. So I'm not gonna pick him. I'd rather just look at someone like Kubiak as my one.
Yeah. Sutton says Mike LaFleur. Fry Reviews Signetti. We were talking about that with Fry Reviews two
Yeah,
nights
we
ago.
did.
Clint Kubiak would be number one for me, guys. And he was the OC with the Saints last year, and they fell off a little bit, but they were insane the first month of the year, and they got really banged up. You're also, you're dealing with Derek Carr. Derek Carr tears his shoulder apart. Like, there's a lot of things going on there last year. And then Mike McDonald, sort of recruits him to be his OC in Seattle. And you see Sam Darnold have the great year with Kevin O'Connell with Minnesota. And then he goes to Seattle and everyone's doubting him. Kevin O'Connell was this quarterback whisperer. Sam Darnold's going to fall off. And we see Sam Darnold have just as good of a year in Seattle with Clint Kubiak. And the Seahawks offensive line in August was supposed to be bad this year.
Really
It
bad.
was, yes. And Clint Kubiak has made that work. He has turned Jackson Smith and Jigba to, at least this year, the best receiver in the NFL.
Yeah, what the
Um, re-
heck?
really knows how to get him the ball, utilizes Kenneth Walker, Zach Charbonnet well. Um, they traded for Rashid Shaheed. I feel like he's been utilized well. I just really like how they play offense and how they go about doing things and what he's done for Sam Darnold and Lamar having a guy. Sorry guys, but I'm about to look up his age. I don't believe he's that old. 38 years old. Like Lamar having a 38-year-old offensive minded play calling head coach, I think would just be a dream scenario.
Yeah, I would.
And also, guys, for anyone that doesn't know, Gary Kubiak, his dad, was the Ravens OC in 2014 when Joe Flacco, not even arguably, just straight up had the best year of his career. So there is a little bit of a connection there with the family, the Kubiak family.
Yeah.
Um, Number two for me, I think, would be Mike LaFleur. Just because I'm with Sutton. I'm very leaning towards the offensive side of the ball here. And he is the Rams OC under Sean McVay, which is obviously a guy that we trust a lot, and I think that would be a good choice as well. Um, I would not be mad at Kevin Stefanski. I think that would be very controversial among the fan base, but
Hmm.
he made the playoffs with like Joe Flacco and otherwise a bad
True.
roster a couple years ago.
Yep.
And I think he's won coach of the year twice in his tenure in Cleveland, guys. Like he's not winning coach of the year in Kansas City. He's doing it in Cleveland, where they haven't really had a quarterback. And also there was a report that Stefanski actually didn't want them to trade for Deshaun Watson. That was purely an ownership decision. So he's also been dealing with that. You
Wow.
know, they traded for a quarterback that he didn't want. Um, if I have to talk about defensive guys, um, we heard Zrebeck talk about Jesse Minter, who I think is a mastermind, maybe like a step below Mike McDonald, but I do think he is a great defensive mind. And we heard Jeff talking about that Minter and Lamar sort of had a nice relationship when Minter was in Baltimore. Even though Minter was on the defensive side, they talked a lot and got along pretty well. So
That's cool.
the number one priority, guys, is that Lamar like loves this coach and they get along for the next 10 years.
Yep.
That is the number one priority. Not number two priority is that, you know, they're a great mind, they're a great play caller. Um, they have the clutch gene, you know, late in games, they know when to call timeouts, all that stuff. But the number one priority is that him and Lamar have a tight, open, honest relationship. And I feel like that really wasn't the case with Harbaugh and Lamar. It usually felt like there was, although they had great respect for each other, it felt like there was some disconnect at times. And Jesse Minter and Lamar apparently have a decent relationship. You know, they're not like buddy buddy, but they got along well when
Hmm.
Minter was in Baltimore. And that's what worries me about Brian Flores. Zach, I think you mentioned this a little bit. Why did Brian Flores get fired from Miami? Okay, there were some other controversial reasons that I'm not going to get into,
Yeah.
but a big deal with Brian Flores in Miami is that him and Tua did not get along. And in fact, him and most of the organization and the other players, they just didn't get along. And he's definitely runs a tight ship, and I think it's sort of his way or the highway. And that would be a little concerning to me with like Lamar and some of these other guys on the offense that we've learned now didn't even want Monken to come back. I just think that would be a little risky. Um, like if the Ravens are set on going defense, which I disagree with, I would be much um I would feel a lot less risk with just going with Minter than going with Flores because I could see
I agree.
some relationship issues happening there. And even with all that said, I'd be pretty surprised if Bisciotti and EDC and Ozzie Newsome hire him because they're going to know even more than we do. Um, so that's sort of my opinion on Brian Flores. Chris Shula, the Rams DC, I think is another great option. I feel pretty similar to him as I do with Jesse Minter. Um, I think Saleh would be interesting, but I really don't think the Ravens are going to hire someone that's been a head coach before. I really don't think that's the direction they're going to go.
Yeah.
Um, but it's going to be really interesting, man. What other thoughts do you have, Zach?
I do like the sound of Salah before you said that. That's an interesting note that the Ravens might not get a guy that has been a head coach before. Like Salah, also a coach, like in a different way that you know has a different vibe and was not really given the greatest chance to excel in the NFL as a head coach. Like he was a Jets guy. I think he's 20 and 36 as a head coach. Like that doesn't sound all that bad for a Jets team for like a few years. But also like him with the Niners, like has always been good. Um, that would seem kind of safe to me, like how we think about Minter as well. Like I think Minter is also a safe pick, as in a young guy that
Yeah.
also technically a part of our roots and been through our system, so he knows a thing or two. Um, and like you said, like this weird unsettling feeling that Flores gives, as in we don't really know the whole story
Mm.
of Flores and his time with Miami. Maybe that'll come more into the light as uh, or if he does get interviewed with the Ravens. But like, I think there's probably a few names that we don't even know yet or recognize as names on this list that the Ravens will have in that probably spark our interest as well. But overall, I would lean offensive more than defensive, but it's like a 60-40 kind of thing. Like
Yeah.
there isn't a Ben Johnson that piques my interest. Maybe Kubiak is kind of like that, but like there's close to that kind of thing rather than the defensive kind of shakiness of that
Yeah.
side of it too.
Yeah. And to play devil's advocate with myself, why I could understand you going defense is because you could look at it as this is going to be Lamar's offense no matter what. That's usually how it works with um, tier one quarterbacks. And with Lamar and with Derrick Henry and with Zay Flowers and with hopefully a better offensive line next year, I you can make the argument that you just try to have a great defense, and even though you're not going to be able to have the same OC for the rest of Lamar's career, you can just try to do really well with hiring that guy that's here for the next 2 or 3 years over and over. And if you have a great defensive minded play caller, head coach, and you can also hit on the OC hire, you could be looking at like an exceptional coaching staff. Um, I think that is sort of what could entice you to hire a defensive coach as well.
Yeah, that's well said. I I think defensively, like with how bad it's been the last few years without
Yeah.
McDonald, it's scarring. As exciting as it would be to have um, an offensive line with Lamar, I think it is equally as exciting to imagine this defense that has many uh, paid like stars on this roster given a real chance to succeed again. Like Zach Orr gave them chances, but there wasn't a like clear separation of them as superstars, as Pro Bowlers, as paid as $15+ million guys scenario at any point for them. Like someone like Marlon Humphrey and all, like can a defensive guy unlock what we have been saying about Marlon as in don't start utilizing him as some guy that has to defend a deep threat. Like use him in the
Yeah.
inside and figure out what works for him. Um, any coach see this offensive line and say, wait, Emory Jones is blocking Cam Hayward like a freaking superstar this game. Let's probably play him from now on rather than go back to your old line. Like someone either side of the ball can, put aside their ego and say, let's do what's best for this team and not just what I say goes, but also what our team shows. Like that rhymed, but how we can go to the next level as a team not built around someone, but also shaped around who we have for that. Like that's kind of the thing I've noticed with Indiana, watching them all year. Like Cignetti has created a team in Indiana that's built around what he excels at. So no matter what coach we have, if you get a team that excels for you and then also is like capable and deep enough as a roster to make those changes, the sky's the limit for the Ravens. And that's why no matter what, either side of the ball that's hired, like I'm gonna feel really confident about this decision. I've said that a few times tonight, but like I think it's very underrated as in, oh, offensive, defensive, rather than just like, let's get the right freaking guy, whether that is a guy that is maybe the organization thought is a very tedious, hard nosed guy like Flores, or also someone that is young and open minded like Kubiak could be. So again, sky's the limit. I'm so pumped for this search. And like I'm sure we're going to be covering it like weekly, as in like interviews and such like that. But like also thinking about who we're not interviewing as well, like as this whole process goes on, and how the Ravens are thinking about their interviewees that they bring
Mm-hmm.
in.
Yeah.
That'll be a fun thing to talk about too.
Yeah. Another thought is, and I've mentioned this before in the past when talking about why they should move on from Harbaugh, but like, guys, think about this. With John Harbaugh being a special teams coordinator and someone who doesn't call plays on either side of the ball, hiring both the OC and the DC were insanely important every single year.
Very.
Now, whether they hire an offensive coach or a defensive coach, you really only have to worry about one coordinator hire making a massive difference.
Sure.
Because one of those other coordinators that you hire, yes, they're going to be playing a role, but they're not going to be calling the plays. They're not going to be like fully in charge of that side of the ball. So like if let's say they hire Clint Kubiak, like you only need to stress about who the DC is. You don't need to stress about the OC and the DC. If they hire Jesse Minter, that OC hire is going to really, really be big, but who they hire at DC is not going to matter that much. So, like, instead of having to hit on both of those, you only have to hit on one of them. So that's another thing that was sort of my gripe with Harbaugh being the special teams coordinator in the first place, and why, you know, even as a Ravens fan, I'm not exactly in favor of like the Steelers having Mike Tomlin or other coaches in the NFL that don't call plays on either side of the ball. I just don't think you're doing yourself a favor when you have a leader of men head coach, quote unquote.
Talking about doing yourself a favor, KP had a great comment. Also think an offensive minded coach would put an emphasis on neglecting the O-line, since that's important. Like, think about it also as in a defensive thing, where this year it was bad on both sides of the trenches.
Yeah.
Either one is going to get addressed to their fullest extent that they can within their power to DaCosta to address via draft, via free agency. Like, we can also feel so much better about how a coach is going to come in and shape this roster as well. Like, I think any great coach right now, hired especially by the Ravens, would come in and see a very glaring issue with the O-line or the D-line and how much better it can be to improve the overall well-being of the Baltimore Ravens. So you can feel confident in that way too. I love that comment, KP. Shout out KP.
That's a really good comment. And I've mentioned that a few times before and kind of forgot during this whole crazy day. Like, the head coach has plenty of say in the personnel. And like Clint, like Ben, let's say when the Bears hired Ben Johnson, he was like, Ryan Poles was their GM before Ben Johnson, and he still is their GM. And when the Bears hired Ben Johnson, they went out and they got a ton of interior offensive line guys and spent a lot of money there. And that tells you that Ben Johnson wanted them to go get interior offensive line help and build the inside run game. So that's another thing as well. They have a massive impact on the personnel too.
What is Will commenting in the chat? Are those head coaching candidates? Will's been going on a freaking...
Yeah, I've been pretty confused about that.
Well, who are those people? Just randomly.
Will, if you want to give us a normal comment names? And let us know what you're doing.
I'd love to know that.
Yeah. But yeah, guys, the head coach has a massive impact on the personnel, and they work sort of hand in hand with the GM. Think about all the times where a quarterback is drafted and it's Kyle Shanahan got his guy, Sean McVay got his guy, Andy Reid got his guy. Andy Reid wanted Mahomes. It wasn't the GM that wanted Mahomes. Andy Reid wanted Mahomes. So you're probably going to see a philosophy change from Eric DaCosta because he's being directed and brainstorming with a different guy now.
Advised, yeah.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, KP Dave Canales did the same thing with the Panthers. For sure. I guess we can get into some more fun, casual conversation here. Interacting with the chat, and also Bill Belichick is a funny name. We heard Jeff Zrebeck bring up Belichick. I would not be happy
Me neither.
with that.
No, thank you.
Um, Also, guys, Cliff Kingsbury, don't let anyone tell you he's a good coach, please, because he's not. Will just said, "Sorry, my toddler stole my phone. Won't happen again." Um, Guys, Cliff Kingsbury, when he went to Arizona with Kyler Murray, they were great early on.
Yeah.
Got figured out. Nothing really changes, and it fizzles out. And then the Commanders hire him to be an offensive coordinator. Jaden Daniels, year one, catches the league by storm.
Yeah.
Year two, what happens? Everyone adjusted, and he didn't change anything.
I don't know. Daniels was
Yes,
hurt a lot.
I do not care. When Daniels was still playing, their offense was bad. And just looking at it as someone who, listen, Cliff Kingsbury knows more about football than I do. But when I watch the Commanders' offense, like there's no motion. It's like so dry, and
Hmm.
I don't like the way that he runs an offense, and I wouldn't. That would be. I'll just say it right now. I'd rather have John Harbaugh than Cliff Kingsbury. I would. That would be that would be a terrible move in my opinion.
I don't know.
That would be awful.
I'm giving him a little credit.
No.
Arizona time was bad, but then he had that little spurt with what USC. That was Caleb Williams, was it not?
Yeah, I think so.
He does have
these little spurts, just like Greg Roman, Zach.
Again, but he doesn't have a horrible resume. If we said we had a stud offensive minded head coach and he was still the OC as in, just a passing game coordinator or something, I could be convinced.
Also,
but still, that's
comment from Kwame. Similarly to Flores, like Cliff and Flores just don't feel like Ravens. They just don't. Like
I think Flores kind of does, but Cliff definitely doesn't.
Flores' personality, he's not going to get hired by the Ravens.
True. That's true.
But yeah. What are your thoughts on Harbaugh with that comment from Ephraim? What are your thoughts, Zach, on Harbaugh's sort of message?
Oh, yeah, those. It's funny that there was a message from both. Wasn't there one from Bisciotti and
Harbaugh? Yep.
That feels weird.
Why?
Maybe it's because of the respect they have for each other, but also the two not really perfectly lining up. Besides the fact that they're like, "Yeah, I respect the Ravens. Thanks so much for the Ravens. Thanks for John Harbaugh. Thanks for his time." Besides those matching up, the first paragraph of Harbaugh's stuff of like, "Man, I thought it was going to be someday. Didn't expect it to be today." Something like that. That's not the exact words, but something close to that, where you get this feeling of like, "Oh, okay, all right." Well, and the rest of it being very kind. Yeah, the emoji in it. I don't know. I just got a little ick from it in a way. Again, we as Ravens fans love freaking John Harbaugh. I really do love him to death as a icon for me forever like that. But also, there was something that threw me off a little bit. I think Bisciotti's was very by the book.
I thought it was really cool that it wasn't a statement from the Ravens. It was like a statement from Steve Bisciotti, and it said "I" a lot of times in there. I thought that was pretty cool.
That is pretty cool.
Because I was not expecting that. Sorry, I was going to talk about Michael's comment.
Oh yeah, I was about to say Dawson's. Both of them kind of on the head.
Same thing. Yeah. Do you think Lamar wanted Harbaugh gone, or is it the media making up a story again?
Oh. Had to be questioned by Lamar, right?
I think Lamar didn't love Harbaugh. I do not think Lamar went up to Steve Bisciotti and was like, "You got to fire him." I don't think that is what happened.
No.
I think Lamar and Harbaugh didn't have a A+ relationship, and Steve Bisciotti knew that. And guys, there's no chance Bisciotti did not talk to Lamar before doing this. They 100% had a conversation.
And I don't imagine it very like an hour-long discussion about this.
Yeah.
I could even see it as, less than 30 minutes, a 20-minute phone call. Just a couple of questions just to see what his thoughts are about, hey, do you want a different face in this locker room for next season? Like, do we need one? And it can be as easy as that. Like, Lamar doesn't strike me as the guy that's going to go on a 5-minute tangent of an explanation of that type of thing. So I'm sure it was a lot of questions, but also like I can picture Bisciotti and Lamar having a conversation and at least just getting his feeling on it. Like having Lamar's again feelings on it on Bisciotti's radar going into the conversations that he was going to have throughout the day with John. So it was definitely something to watch. But again, like you said, it wasn't like okay, our hands are tied. Lamar, do you think we should get rid of him or no?
Yeah.
Like it's nothing like that.
And also like Lamar and Harbaugh are seen like talking before games, like both of them smiling all the time. Like it definitely wasn't like bad between them.
Right. It's like a C+, right?
Yeah, I think they had like a C plus relationship. But yeah. Any other thoughts, Zach?
Yeah, why not roll the dice and go and try and get an A+ relationship?
Exactly.
Think about, like, the connection you'd have with an all-time level quarterback and the direction of your team and how much better it can be if the relationship goes up a grade level in that.
Yeah. I just think Lamar would get along really well with like a young guy.
I hope so.
Like I know they're not going to hire him, but like Lamar with Bill Belichick, like I don't think that would. You know what I mean? Like
that sounds rough. Yeah,
like Lamar with another older head coach. Like look, guys, John Harbaugh looks great for his age. He's like 63. Like he is like 37, something like that, years older than Lamar. Like let's bring that down to like 15 or 10. You know, like Clint Kubiak's 10 years older than Lamar. So
that's a funny comment from Chris, by the way, too. Chris said, I get along with my boss, but if you offer me a new one,
like that actually is like a really good comment.
That is a funny way to look at it, but it's true. I'm sure it was true if that's as easy as the question was addressed to Lamar. Maybe like, would you be happier with a new head coach? Yes or no?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, man. I don't know that I have anything else to add. I mean, obviously a crazy day. I was actually in the midst of making a post for Lamar season about Albert Breer talking about the fact that it was up in the air that Harbaugh would be, fired or not.
As you said.
Yeah, coin flip. And I was literally making the post on Photoshop, and I was probably 3 minutes away from posting it, and I got the Schefter tweet, John Harbaugh out as Ravens head coach, and luckily I already had that one prepared and just hit send. And from there on out, it's, everyone who covers the Ravens, me and Zach included, our day has been crazy since 5 p.m. It's a wild day. How shocked were you guys? Like, I wasn't like, oh my goodness, like this is insane. But it had been like almost 2 days since they lost, and I was sort of starting to feel like they were going to keep him.
I'd started to think about preparing this document that we had as basically what we're going to go off of.
Yeah.
This podcast. We were going to do a podcast no matter what. But
yeah.
Like it's funny that the direction of it literally fully changed by that much. Like, again, like it wasn't. It was pure shock in a way that like you make it, or someone has made a decision that involves you that like you just get butterflies about. Like you feel the weight of a massive decision. Also in a way that, I think, speaking in my perspective, and I'm sure a few of you as well, as in we agree with that decision, like it going the way you had wanted as well, like feeling the weight of like there was a good tweet, just a gif of someone, who was it? Torrey Smith, maybe? And it was like
Uh-huh.
Samuel L. Jackson. Samuel L. Jackson goes
Yeah,
it's like okay, like we're working with something here. Like, there
yeah.
was a weird
Yeah.
pressure, almost like a good in a good way.
Yeah, I've seen multiple tweets from Ravens fans sort of saying that this is the first time they felt excited in a while. And I can get behind that. I mean, I definitely felt excited in the 2023 offseason when they signed Odell and got the Lamar extension done. But this is really like, last offseason, I don't really think there was any excitement.
Maybe like Mike Green as like the peak of it.
Yeah, but like still, that's like a second round pick.
I know. Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
this year, I feel like it's like we have like a new slate, a clean slate.
The high of Mike Green second round draft pick compared to Odell and Lamar extension, like you said,
Hmm.
as in think about how that propelled the whole season. Like
Yeah,
2023
yeah,
was a fever dream now.
yeah,
Last year was a total nightmare.
yeah,
And how much a new face of all of it could change the locker room. And now a whole offseason with it too, where I think it's pretty obvious what we need to fix, but also a couple of also big decisions that have to be
yeah.
made with crucial guys. Like the original plan for this podcast was to talk about some of those free agents um, that we're going to be losing because it's a long list, and
Yeah,
I'm sure we'll be able to cover it here soon. But like, there's still a lot more to go with that, and I'm sure now the head coaching decision and interview process has gone to the forefront of it and probably decides the whole rest of that, like the whole direction of the off season. It's
hmm,
and only adds another layer of excitement, like you mentioned. It all
yeah,
piles onto that.
yeah. Two other thoughts. Comment from Bentley. Definitely makes the loss feel a lot better. I was thinking this is like the best I've ever felt in my life after a
Yeah,
season-ending Ravens loss. Not even still 48 hours after the end of that game. Haven't been in this good of a mood ever um, after a situation like that. And then also, guys, something to think about. This is like the best opening in like sports right now. This head coaching opening. Um, the Ravens are going to get whoever they want. So
and this never happens in the NFL where it's like a premier spot that gets
yeah,
a head
you
coaching.
had when the
It's rare, at
Chargers
least.
the Chargers job was open a few years
Mhm.
ago, and they basically were going to get anyone they wanted. Got Jim Harbaugh. Um, but yeah, it's not very often that this happens. And to circle all the way back when I was talking about Steve Bisciotti earlier, you could make much more of a case that Zach Taylor should be fired than John Harbaugh should be fired.
Hmm.
And Zach Taylor is staying. Um, and I think Bengals fans are not happy about that. And I think Bengals fans are now even more taken aback seeing that another team in their division is less okay with what's happened the last couple of years, and they've been overperforming the Bengals. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I think that's interesting as well. Like, I think the Steelers and the Bengals are very unwilling to change with some things. I think the Browns are almost like too far on the other end of the spectrum, where Jimmy Haslam is a little too trigger happy.
Yeah. Maybe.
Um, I think Steve Bisciotti has a nice medium that he's found. I would not be saying this if they kept Harbaugh this offseason, but him moving on from Harbaugh tells me that um, we're kind of on the same page as Bisciotti. I don't think Ravens fans really felt like Harbaugh should be fired after last year. I mean, I know some of them probably did, but um, I was not mad that they fired Harbaugh last offseason. Um, so I do think it was good timing.
To take a step back, those seasons where you didn't feel, or I should say, I didn't feel like they should fire Harbaugh was games and situations that were decided in the postseason. Like not getting a chance to go to the postseason and having this is now a notion by the inside of the organization, a incredible looking team as in a roster going into the season and you can't get it done. There was definitely some mishaps in the year for sure. Um, but like every team gets stuff like that. Like there wasn't like a final excuse whenever you point to the playoffs and say, or the media even says like, "Oh, Lamar choked this one. Oh my gosh, I can't believe um, Mark Andrews dropped this one. I can't believe Zay fumbled this one." Like there wasn't anything else to point at besides what you did in the regular season this year, and the loop kick was kind of a blessing in disguise in that way to fully show that, like, hey, just look at this season, Bisciotti. Just look at this. DaCosta, look at this season. Like, there isn't much more evidence that we can provide anymore to say you need to move on. It was definitely a gut wrenching, difficult decision, but we think they made the right one for both sides. I think Harbaugh is going to go to some place like Vegas or the Titans or the Giants and probably be successful, as in transforming a team to maybe a at minimum like 7-win team. It feels like he can do that with an organization and a good looking roster or capable roster. The Ravens are not trying to prep for the future, as in maybe what Harbaugh was talking about when moving on from Munkin and keeping Munkin, keeping Orr around. Like they're ready to win right now, and a year gone, a year thrown in the trash of this last season is unforgiving in that way, where this roster and how great it looked, how many not once in a lifetime, but very fortunate events happen, whether it's Awuzie, whether it's the health of a bunch of these players throughout the season, besides Lamar. Like there was so many reasons that you could say, like, well, I think you also were very fortunate to be able to coach this team and still not be able to get over the hump in that way is again unforgiving. So I think you got to look at that and take in like, yeah, the postseason stuff, like the regular season stuff is important, but this season was so, I guess eye opening to myself. Definitely, I was definitely a Harbaugh supporter for almost all of my time here. I would say most of it, besides the season, but for the last 7 weeks, and I think that's how it also felt with someone like Bisciotti. It felt like that with basically the entire fan base. I would say the entire fan base. So it had to come crumbling down eventually, and it has made an incredible first 2 days of the offseason.
Already a crazier offseason than last year.
100% by a lot. Like it's doubled it
Yeah.
up,
Yeah.
if not tripled.
I know. Very interesting comment from Sheed. Do you guys see Harbaugh having a Sean Payton type of success in Denver or more so Pete Carroll with the Raiders? How old is Sean Payton?
Pretty old.
Sean Payton is 62. What's Harbaugh? 63. So I know
There's
Pete
good
Carroll.
situations to go to. Like, sorry to cut you off there. Like the Titans, like I guess they have a capable quarterback, right? You
Yeah.
can still build around.
Yeah.
Giants, I think, definitely have a capable quarterback and a good supporting cast around him. I think that could be more leaning Sean Payton than Pete Carroll. But then again, if he were to say the Raiders or maybe the Browns, like there's still holes in these teams that need addressing. Like the Sean Payton one was kind of like a perfect situation. I think there was some weird situation with his contract and who he could coach for as well, and it was just the perfect storm for them. So that is definitely possible with Harbaugh and wherever he ends up. But like, if Harbaugh isn't given an incredible roster, I'm not totally sure. Without the help of two extremely great coordinator hires, he
Yeah.
would be leading that team to a Broncos level season that we're seeing a couple years into his tenure there.
Yeah, and obviously it'll really matter where he goes. If if Sean Payton went to the Raiders, I don't think he would have had that much more success than Pete Carroll did.
Yeah.
But I do think if Pete Carroll would have gone to Denver, they would not be as good as they are with Sean Payton. I really feel like, Zach, there's not many. I feel like almost every job opening this year is like kind of bad. Like Giants, I think is the best one, and obviously we're excluding the Ravens. Like Jackson Dart looked pretty good. Malik Neighbors, however, he's coming back from the ACL, but like you have a great receiver. You have a lot of talent on defense.
Yeah.
In a division now that really kind of only has one good team with Philly. You know, the Commanders fell off pretty bad. I think the Raiders' job is awful. I think the Falcons and the Cardinals' jobs are not terrible. I think the Browns' job is pretty bad. Raiders would be intriguing. You know, the two Harbaughs in the same division would be crazy. That would be cool. Mm-hmm. And they do have the number 1 overall pick.
Yeah. That's why I kind of find the Raiders a little more intriguing than like the Falcons or Arizona.
It's just like I don't.
You can really pick and choose your roster for what it's worth.
Yeah, I mean, I know Tom Brady's sort of a partial owner there now, but I don't think that team is owned very well with Mark Davis.
Brady.
But yeah, Brady, we'll see how much Brady's able to change that over the course of his time there. But yeah, I think you can maybe see Harbaugh do the thing where he kind of waits a year and you see maybe a much better job open next season. Maybe you see the Bengals job open next season and he goes and coaches Joe Burrow. Maybe you see, you know, Andy Reid retire. I don't know. But
maybe.
Also, one more thing that I actually am Charles commented Mark Davis is too worried about his 20-year-old girlfriend.
Charles Davis.
What the hell was I gonna say? Oh yeah. One thing that I am pretty happy about is I was kind of concerned that the Ravens are going to move on from Harbaugh and he was going to move to like a front office role. And as much as I love Harbaugh and what he did for the organization, I do not want him. Like, it would almost kind of be the same thing.
Yeah.
Like, there'd be a different coach, but like Harbaugh's philosophy, which is a lot of what being a head coach is and your impact on the organization, would still be there. So I'm glad that that is not the route that they went either, which he probably didn't want to do that anyway, but.
It's like kicking the can down the road, but it's like kicking into the other lane now.
Yeah, like not even
there.
Down the road.
Yeah. It's kind of like just to the other lane. Yeah, it's not even down the road.
Yeah. You got anything else, Zach?
I don't think so. Had a lot of people in here tonight. Shout out to all y'all.
Yeah,
I don't know if we're gonna be able to do shout outs like usual. That was a lot, y'all.
Let's just like
awesome, though. Just try. We can try.
Let's just try.
Okay. Just say.
Fran, just start.
Are you going
naming?
I'll go to.
You go from top to bottom. I'll go from bottom to top.
Sutton with Purple Rain. Dawson
has Charles, Fran, Michael Yeager, Charles Snyder.
Wrong siren.
Timothy 334. Fry Reviews. Kwame. Bentley.
The real Sile. Chris was in here. Jay Neal.
Sheed X. David Murray. KP.
My Wow was in here. Living Legend. Dude, we are going crazy right now. William. Ephraim. I'm so sorry if I messed that up. Will was in here. KP. Shout out KP. With that
you said Ephraim. Makai Livingston.
Fish Stick.
Shout out Fish Stick. JD Futures.
Mad Rasta was in here.
Chris.
We had Sutton join as a new member. I don't know if we missed that. Did we miss that?
I put it up, but yeah, we didn't talk about it. Shout out to Sutton for becoming a member of the channel. We really appreciate Sutton.
We might dive a little into some member exclusive stuff this offseason. So
yeah,
if you want to be a part of it.
If you guys want to check that out, hit
join up. Join up.
Honestly, shout out to Sutton. Everyone go subscribe to the Purple Rain podcast, please. They're awesome over there. But yeah, if we didn't get you guys, we apologize, but we really appreciate everyone.
Kwame.
Yeah.
Keep going. Big J. You just ended. I'm going to keep going. Martavius.
Everyone, we really appreciate you guys for being here tonight and helping us get to 1K subs, as Zach is making sure he's not missing anyone else out. Also, for all of you guys that, are silent listeners, did not don't really interact with the chat. We appreciate you just as much. Be sure to like the video, hit the subscribe button. That was one of the fastest 90-minute periods of my life. I can't believe it was that long. Great conversation with you, Zach. High frequencies. But yeah, really appreciate you guys. We have no idea what is in store the next couple of weeks, but we will keep you guys updated, and we will be recording episodes and going live as this unfolds. So thank you guys so much. Like, subscribe, notification bell, follow Lamar Season, Ravens HQ, Charm City Sideline on Instagram. You guys know the drill. Peace out. Everyone have a good rest of your week. See you later.
Peace.